Hello, you're watching the business headlines on HW News with me, Ali Azhar. When one of our own is given recognition on the world stage, it's a matter of pride for all us Indians. And when that recognition is possibly the highest honor that could be bestowed on someone, that pride is magnified tenfold. In case you don't already know, you'll be happy to know that the Nobel Prize in Economics this year has been awarded jointly to a group of 3 economists. 58-year-old Indian-American Abhijit Banerjee, his wife, French-American Esther Duflo, and 54-year-old American national Michael Kremer. The trio have won the Nobel for the most noble of causes, for their extensive work to alleviate global poverty. Just to further highlight their achievements, Esther Duflo, at 46 years old, is the youngest person ever to receive the Nobel Prize in Economics, and is also just the second woman to ever receive it. Again, I'm only talking about the Nobel Prize in Economics. And just for your knowledge, the Nobel is awarded for outstanding work in 6 fields, namely physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, economics, and promotion of peace. But I digress. As a couple, Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo were only the 4th ever in history to win this prestigious award together. The couple teach at MIT in Boston, with Mr. Banerjee being awarded a PhD from Harvard. And as for Mr. Michael Kremer, he too has earned a PhD from Harvard University and is now a professor over there. Also, and I personally found this amusing, was that Abhijit Banerjee is the first and will probably be the last Nobel laureate that was a former member of Tihar jail. Yes, you heard that right. The incident took place at Jawaharlal Nehru University, or JNU, in 1983 when a student agitation on campus culminated in a sit-in at the residence of the Vice-Chancellor. After 2 days, the police was called in and arrested 400 students and put them in Tihar jail. Mr. Banerjee was one of them. However, all of them were released on bail a few days later. Okay, with the introductions out of the way, let's move on to what got them their Nobel in the first place, their body of research. They received the award for their contribution to reviving something known as development economics, which deals with economic aspects of developing and low-income countries. It considers factors such as health, education, working conditions, etc. This development economics was studied using random control trials in which subjects are randomly assigned into 2 groups, either the experimental group on whom the tests are actually conducted and the control or the comparison group. These results are then studied in such a way that larger questions about policy interventions and structural issues which affect the country as a whole are broken down into smaller or more precise questions at individual or group level. This is, by the way, a new approach to going about the same problem and has considerably improved our ability to fight global poverty. The method proved to be very effective because it was done with the help of experimental methods that put researchers in direct contact with the poor and would lead to formulation of policies that go by evidence rather than assumptions. An oversimplified example of this would be if half the schools in a district were randomly chosen for a specific trial, let's say biometric attendance records for teachers, and the other half were not. Then, if we compare the grades of the children afterwards, it would make for a convincing case whether or not such biometric records help improve learning outcomes of the students by keeping track of the teachers. Alright, so now that we've understood who these Nobel laureates are and what they have contributed to society, now let's hear Mr. Abhijit Banerjee's view on how policies have been enacted back home, what scheme he has been instrumental in implementing, and the state of the economy under the Modi regime in general. When asked in an interview about the government's proposed 10% reservation in jobs and education to the economically backward section just before elections, Mr. Banerjee stated that he was against the move and that adding quotas dilute quotas for someone else, and such policies only create a political focus on quotas. Further, during the same interview, he also said, when asked about jobs, that there is a huge mismatch between people's expectations and what jobs are actually available, which creates a huge problem. Then, his views about farm loan waivers were that it is not an inclusive system, as those farmers who don't own any land don't get any farm loans, so they don't benefit from the waivers. He was more in favor of income guarantee schemes. When questioned about the banking crisis, it's terrible, he says. We're shying away from taking hard decisions after knowing a bunch of banks are bad for the last 50 years. On another note, Mr. Abhijit Banerjee has also played a key role in the 2019 Lok Sabha elections by contributing to the Congress's idea of the Nyay scheme, which then promised to provide the poorest Indians 72,000 rupees annually or 6,000 rupees a month in the hopes of eradicating poverty. However, this manifesto suffered a massive defeat in the national elections. So, his detractors would naturally say that he is aligned towards the Congress's ideology and hence is against the Modi system of belief. However, I would recommend you to form your own opinion. Then we come to the most hard-hitting part, where Mr. Banerjee, speaking at Brown University in the USA last week, took a serious jibe at the economic policies implemented by the Modi government. He rated the fall in consumption and demand as extremely serious and said that institutions are turning into zombies, which he described as no one wanting to stick their necks out and take decisions. He stated, and I quote, "They say, okay, wait, we will check with the PMO. PMO is busy, so nothing happens." Mr. Banerjee also blamed the centre's big-ticket economic decisions of demonetization and the hurried implementation of GST for what he called a lack of demand and investment. He was quoted again as saying, over a 4-year period, average consumption is going down, which hasn't happened in many years. I'm guessing since the 70s. Investments have totally collapsed by a factor of 75%. Exports are not growing. I think this is a crisis. At the same event, former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan said there were deep signs of malice in the Indian economy. India is losing its economic way, in part because it is centralizing power without a persuasive economic vision. We risk wasting a demographic dividend, he was quoted as saying. We all by now have heard criticism from all quarters of the country when it comes to the current state of our economy. The only difference being now a Nobel laureate in economics has also joined the rank and file. And while they say that it's darkest just before dawn and that things often seem their worse right before they get better, our economy seems to be testing that theory to its absolute limit. Thank you for watching HW News. This is me signing off. Have a great day.